All right, good morning. Yeah, we should have a Scottish accent or something. Yeah. Maybe a Kiwi accent. That would also be nice. All right. I'll prostrate to the Ari triple gem. That's it here at one time. The Bhagavan was dwelling on massive Vajra mountains in Rajgira together with a great community of monks and a great community of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in concentration on categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that in the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom, should look upon us like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is not other than form, form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, composition, factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness without characteristic. Unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no composition of factor, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element and so on up to including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on up to including no aging and death and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, Bodhisattvas rely on dwelling perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration, without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in 3 times also manifestly completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of the great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering shall be known as the truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared, Tayata Om Gate Gate Para Samgate Bodhisoha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva should train in profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated, even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, along with the words of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. I prostrated the gathering of the kinis in the 3 chakras of the body and holy yogas of using space by the powers of clairvoyance and magical emanation, looked after practitioners like a mother her child. Tayata Om Gate Gate Para Samgate Bodhisoha. By the teachings of the 3 supreme jewels possessing the power of truth, may inner and outer hindrances be transformed, may they be dispelled, may they be pacified. Shintun Koriye Soha. May all negative forces opposed to the Dharma be completely pacified. May the host of 80,000 obstacles be pacified. May we be separated from formed problems and harmful conditions to Dharma. May all enjoyments be in accord with the Dharma. And may there be auspiciousness and perfect happiness here and right now. Sa shi po ki jun shi me to ram ri ram ling shi ni de gen ba de sang ye shi hindu mi te o wa hi do ku nam da shi la chu pa shui dang guru raka mandala kandiya
Sanji Chedan
Chonan
Soji
Sogi
Chonam
Chonam
La
La
Chanchu
Chanchu Badu
Dani
Dani
Kyab
Kyamsu
Sunchi
Chi
Dagi
Dagi
Chushiki
Chushegi
Ben
Betsonam
Sonam
Dola
Drolam Benchi
Benche
Sanji
Sangye
Drupara
Drupa
Sho Sanji Chedan
Chonan Sogi
Soji Chonam
Chonam La
La Chanchu
Chanchu Badu
Dani
Dani
Kyab
Kyamsu
Sun
Chi
Dagi
Dagi
Chushiki
Chushegi
Ben
Betsonam
Sonam Ji
Dola
Drolam
Benche
Sanji
Sangye
Drupara
Drupa Sho
Sho Sanji
Chonan
Chedan
Sogi
Sojin
Chonam
Chonam
La
La Chanchu
Chanchu
Bardu
Badu
Dani
Dani Kyamsu
Kyabsun Dagi
Dagi
Chushi
Chushegi
Giben Sonam
Betsonam
Jin
Dola
Drolam Bench
Benche
Sanjin
Sangye
Drupara
Drupa Sho
Sho Kanki Tuzi Nizuni Tawa Tamje Pambi Chere Tambi Chun Denze Kodam Chela Changse Lo Good morning everyone. Nyala welcome. 만딱하지 참din ma da show 가시지 모두 아니 진짜 테마 쭉 속어라 그래
Yeah.
데이지 쭉 지금 띵을 저러다스라 티질라라지.
So we're going to go back to the text and pick up from the point that we left off in the previous session. So we just have a few more pages left to the end of the text, and we have 6 more sessions left, right? So we, first of all, are definitely going to finish the text, but we might even finish before time. Who knows? We might even finish today.
Today, I'm not sure. Today,
I'm just gonna I'm putting a spin on it. In fact, we've already finished. Let's pack our stuff and go home.
Teresa, shiba choksu drovi dunga tang, mama ingi leba shiwa ngowa seti.
All right, so we're going to pick up today from verse 23. So like always, let's first of all look at the outline and see where we are. So we are looking at the 10th chapter. We're now dedicating for the welfare of beings in the higher realms. Point 1 comes at the heading of dedicating so that they may be free of suffering. Today we're going to pick up from point D, dedicating so that the suffering of beings in all directions and the harm caused by non-humans is pacified.
Teresa, di nga ngarang rumbu chiki kalap nalolaya di malam de pe kechambures. Tachi nganzu kawai na dan drogo gorasra. Drovi kawlaya lamlaya chik mache kong sana pena ta chik moda drogo ya ani moda din laya manzu kong ani malam di dini tibi sik sholo ka shiores sik sholo ka shidi ani pe masiba kechimbo res geng ala mambu sonyo ye ani geng tanga genyam do kasakala ani shabshin droyanza geng kadu na di songu yobatia ngege karsota Genyo yes, jigi yes ra. Tichi di tamaji di tanda di kwa malo di nganzo yungro as ra. Ine di pe kishenbo ra ta nganzo kasa kala ya 아니 로구여 미망부 쇼지기 아니 졸람라야 아니 강한테니 베나 랑기 소이나 폰로야기 딘디 강함부 체고라서라 딘디라 빼 마스바드니 조디 비 아니 대바당 담직생이디 고고다스 추기 칠람주게라야 디 대바다 담직세디 조 소수기 대바자마장 아니 담직 송무송라야 라레리 마도지 아니 대비 나저주 대바샤스 유라야 대바샤 뭐와지다 텔라야 담직샤나 담직 용함에 딘디 싸우인 말이었으라.
So we're going to pick up from verse 23. And in general, when Geshe was relying upon his teacher, his precious teacher, he did emphasize the importance of making such aspirations, particularly when you travel somewhere. We're going to cover now 4 verses. So when you travel somewhere, before you embark on your journey, before you enter your car and so forth, it's so important to make such aspirations. And Geshe had the chance to do it quite a few times as he was attending his teacher, and he traveled with his teacher to different places, different locations. So it is so important to make such aspirations, and we'll go through the meaning. So you will see what those verses mean, and the meaning of them is very important. As we travel to different places, it is possible that we encounter certain conditions. Some of them might even put in danger our own life. But then here we develop faith, and also we got our samaya. And through developing faith and guarding our samaya, we receive the blessing of the Dhamma. And as such, we need to then train in developing faith, and we also need to make effort in guarding our samaya. And if we do so, it's not that they will fail us. If we do so, it's not that there will be that we will do everything that is right from our side, and yet what we have faith in, or asamaya, will fail us.
어디래셔 디자 베나타 당한주 베나지 겐돈 바인바이나 아니 무투속이 가두이나 지금 혼남 자로치 세 딘리 망부 연구도 왔으라 사도도 직 사전 딘리야 다지 자와단 좀마 하장 인용인 반자 안 도솔이야 레와장이 망부 연구도 왔으라 아직 로고에 니지 애니 부구지 로고에 세워서다 다딘디 야 혼남 자로치 슬라온디게 비기 소수게 지단 혼남 자나 디고데이냐 콩도 사치 콩된 딘디 지금 혼남 여바디 아니 잡투바이나 자자자탐바타 편도 연구를 왔으라.
So for instance, here we have a small group of monastics, and sometimes we receive requests to make prayers for the sake of different people. So there are so few of us, and sometimes the request that we get is to pray for the sake of people that have to travel somewhere, either they travel or the children travel and so forth. So in general, it's good to do such prayers, but even more so, it's good to do them when we can rely upon an authoritative source, an authentic source.
Dinza 가서 다지 말랑 잡단도디 지당 아주 남주 말랑 잡단 아니 자스좀 시발이 송디 토니 다 말랑 잡단 그 망부 연구도 디치디 베나 당 아주 전주 샘 비게 조 전주 샘 공에 들어왔어 전주 샘 공비 갑둘이야 베나 아주 남주 비게 판데자벨라 마루무치 다긴 Chur payment danju, Jamber payment danju, Ningar payment danju chichi, and Sonde sum, Taman Ningar payment danjulaya, Penny Rangi Trinity Zavilama, Chundring Mustabi Zavilama Tiedam, or Yaotsungava, Jumbo Timbuambo, those Jana Dudos, Yampi, the Janju Sam Gidanga, Yona Menadi, Yasichim Shivaligi, and Son Dinza, and Rangi Chundring Mustabi Zavilama Tiedam, Yasichim Shivalani, Moyeme. 디게 아니 비랑기 쪼라치 쪼니만 잠발치 잠바니 힝가를 준비 카둘라 아니 지 다트 링디 자야 된다스로 아주 남기 닝기 비기 섭다로디 지 마요요티 아니 yellow de yo dia big 아니 medo payment nashing dama gechni 아니 카두스야 체데바 아니 디기 기델야 장 텐션 사빌라마 당고 예만 시비기 야스 좀 시발라디 인가 텔야 비기 kilaya shu ani ni tsudus temso nyambi mewachin ani rangi ning kilaya tisabe lama da jasa chim shwala ngo yeme yobadi ani shu yu sambi toni malam de gyavni otta shogi tindri chechen ta dini sik de kadu kyobayna ya rangi ning kilaya yobi ani jasa chim shwala di be ani song chung yu sambi gi mewachini malam gyabayna jasa jathambadini pendo cheyoris tal kanji lami nanju gombi kabdulaya tisungoras di rigba su jar chogras ra
Cezan medo pe megidam tamandi dos charwati.
ni tampa kachi an sum diki tele tsubad.
So we're making prayers in different situations. In general, the prayers that we make, the aspirations that we make are made in a variety of ways, but particularly here, when we think of the prayers that we do in depends upon Shantideva's text, then how does Shantideva makes them? Here, the emphasis that Shantideva places is on the practice of the precious mind of enlightenment, the precious bodhicitta. So Geshe reckons that we can combine that together with a practice that we often do when we receive the blessings of the Lama. We ask for the blessings of the Lama and receive them. So first of all, we invite the Lama to sit on top of our crown to guide us with their great kindness and grant us the blessings of the Bodhi speech and mind. Then we invite them to take a seat on the lotus flower at our throat, and then at our heart, to come to reside at the heart and grant us all the realizations and the siddhis and the blessings of body, speech, and mind. So as we do that, we visualize the Lama as being a root Lama, or being indivisible with Lama Tsongkhapa, or being indivisible from Buddha Shakyamuni. We visualize in that the Lama that gives us those instructions. So particularly here, as we study Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, the instructions that we get are from Shantideva. Then we have the Lama that gives us the actual instructions. So in doing this visualization, we visualize that the Lama is first of all alighting on a crown, sitting on a lotus flower. And we visualize them as being inseparable from Shantideva. Then in the second round of doing this recitation, we visualize them at our throat. And lastly, we visualize them at our heart, sitting upon an open lotus flower. And when we ask them to grant us with the realizations and siddhis and the blessings of Bodhi, speech, and mind and so forth, we visualize that the lotus flower is closing up on them so that they're kept in our heart. So whatever we do throughout the day, whatever blessings, whatever prayers we do throughout the day, they're still done in light of the Lama residing at our heart. So if we do it in this way, Geshe reckons that it is consonant with the practice of Guru Yoga. So we tailor it in this way. Here, particularly as we look at the practice of bodhicitta as taught to us by Shantideva through the Lamas that give us instructions. So we do this Guru Yoga in a way that is tailored to Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life. Now the aspirations here are quite clear. Let's first of all look at verse 23. May all travelers be happy in every direction whatsoever. May the aims for which they travel be effortlessly accomplished.
re
Geshe Rinpoche's commentary says, may all, just a second. May all travelers of the 10 directions, such as traders and so forth, be happy wherever they go, and may they achieve the purpose of their journey effortlessly.
terda tinza pena goba khangi tun drawers laundi chi pena ma jaela soba ani chi kuthok chomsum che chedun draw to su chedu draba shosi e malum gag maros ra tigana goden yo maros ta tinza kanji chedan tumbigi ani tenji seni jargo gros ra.
Here we wish them to have success in whatever they endeavor. May all travelers of the 10 directions, such as traders and so forth, be happy wherever they go, and may they achieve the purpose of their journey effortlessly. Means that it's not that we wish them, for example, if they're setting up to go to war, or if they're combining a rogue party going off to rob other people, pillaging and so forth. It's not that we wish them to have success in that. That is not a meaningful way of wishing success for others. Here, we wish them to be successful in ways which are called with the Dharma.
Ta chödan tumbas lawandi bena din nalola ya jebe nalola ya chongbala sobas jawananji injimi chong inba na chödan mintimba ingo yo marwas ra chödan tumbas lawandi kanji sosugi chowin tungen dribna chödan mintingo ya mandas ra sosu chowin tungen di shenla ya manubito ra ani chi shenla manubas lawandi Tina Sama Chuda, Tachi, and Gogo Tayala Soba, Tambashiela Soba, to Samalo, Shenla Nubi Chavajanza, Kanji Shenla Manubi Chedu, Rangi, and it's so to get Drubiadico, Tande Chagoras, do some didn't do Gores.
Now, when we wish them to do so in a way that accords with the Dharma, you might be thinking that what does business have to do with it? Because here we says that may those who conduct business, may all travelers be happy in every direction whatsoever may the aims for which they travel. For example, if they travel as business people to do business, be effortlessly accomplished. So it's not that doing business necessarily have to disagree with the Dharma. You can do business. You can provide yourself with your own livelihood, but in ways which are not discordant with the Dharma, without harming others, without deceiving others, without being cunning and so forth. These attitudes are harmful to others. So we avoid them. We shun those attitudes which are harmful to others, and we act in a way that is truthful and honest.
Ta nyanga cher ro kanjing anzo gyanda khashi sal ro ba ya pe ani thungor de tindi la ya ten in rogoras ta tuzoni pe pigi la ya tes chi manti na ani second khashi na lo la ya chi ani sole ne ba yon dia tindi ko ngoye chagor tinza kawa ro ba ya kadu rogu yo ba ya ani jas chi mu shiwa la gi malum di kyor thu ba na ani ran shen samalola ya ra penyanchi Geshe Jatamba chagosares.
So we have so many ways at the present to travel, so many means of traveling, and some means of traveling can get us to where we go in such a short span of time. You consider almost like it's like displaying miraculous powers in getting us where we need in a short span of time. And many things can go wrong. It is possible for us to even lose a life in just a few seconds. So here, we make such aspirations for those who travel. May that be beneficial for them.
Terida pigita trudan trujin shuba namslaundi tagareta truda trujin tinji yela samban drib gyurte 추용os terchene 년단 hin지 가버쇼스.
And then the next verse, 24, says, may those who sail in boats and ships fulfill the wishes, having happily returned to shore. May they be joyfully united with their relatives.
rumbuchila sobi tendos gamzon jubi trudan truchembo singi nandu shubanam yela sambashan dun drubun gyodi chuyungomsun devar chinis nyendan hinji gawarshos.
The commentary says, may those who set out on the ocean on small boats and big ships to find riches such as jewels achieve their aims according to their wishes. May they safely reach the shore and be happily reunited with their family.
Tedini nyangen lamkor kambanam jombo tagdan tegyonni chomgon tagsok jigme par mangal dela domarshos.
And then verse 25 says, may anguished wanderers who have gone astray in deserts meet with other travelers, and without fear of robbers, thieves, tigers, and others, may they proceed easily without fatigue.
Terda ta siwresta tiri nyangin ji tangchenbola sobi lam kowan kambanam ug jemba jimbin jombo tagdan chembrin gyonni chomgon padan tagsok jigba meba mangawa dela dun domarshos.
The commentary says, may those who wander in circuitous, fearful routes in sandy deserts meet with travelers who give them a fresh breath of hope, and may they then be able to walk their paths untiringly and happily, free from dangers such as bandits, thieves, or tigers.
Terezata pena jasachum shola she shubi kabdula ani pensun drobi kabla ya ani ta lamchen mambu gyuni ro ani chik shinala soba ani dindigi ta nyanga tsawu ton dron digi ani pe nyanga chishu di ani chik tagzig soba ani chenzen la soba dindigi ta nyanga pe chenbu yosarwas ta dindigi nyanga cheba ina chita nyanga pe chenbu ras ina ya nyanga di mache kon pena manta la ya kama khashi chik pe ngen la ya chik ani samlo ta ya da tindi da ragra wasra suzula ya ta nyanga chigdu samwandi chik malam jayare kama khashi ngen la samtan tuyagi kogob di jacha guch kog ragra was tanda doina nganzo tindi gi pe yo marda ina ya korna lan drawandi gi segenchi korna ya samtan ya marawa chi susu son rogo yagi nyanga chechk chagdo wasra dinza di khon ni pe ani chik pemba da malam yapu jan drawaina the digi pengros ro jeva chimala pengros ro sem tolaya chu pacha legros ro.
When we think of the aspirations that Shantideva makes here, and when we think about it in terms of how the time and place that Shantideva was living at, when we go back and forth between different places, the time of old, people used to travel far and wide, crossing deserts, forests, and so forth. And of the dangers that they encountered were dangers, for example, of wild beasts, encountering wild beasts, tigers, lions, or what have you. So then, of course, for us, we don't encounter at the present such dangers. But when you think about it, then before setting out on the road, if you encounter such conditions, then obviously you have a few minutes that you can spare in order to make such aspirations, such prayers. You can think about it. Now when we go places, the modes of traveling are so quick. So we can get to places so fast that you might not have such a long time to think about it and make aspirations. You might have only a few seconds, but still it's important to make them. It's important to do it because, first of all, it's going to be helpful in our next lives, but also it leaves on a mind stream imprints of the Dharma.
Tere kanji nganzo chikche du mapyo ngela ya samlo te stansara waina malam jasara waina di igi pemba di kewa chimi tola ya shukchimbu shuch drwe chagora dinza nganzo samlo che tanya marani pigi tagas chik pamegi ani namandro ju kordibi kadula ya ani so drogu chombaina pe masiba nyenga tsago ro sen di da ko tagaran zo drogore kewa chimaina di nyenga tsago chög toni di nyenga tsago ji songu da asra dinza di khon la ya chik susu pigila ya kawa shugu yobaina ya kawa drogu yobaina ya jik modari ta chungor kanda chik peju chiwana di machi kon ani malam yabu kyapchi drobaina ani pigi mala bardu ta chik malam thigi kaso da nibado di sem namla da yoyo bado digira asra.
So for us now, it's important before we travel somewhere that we make sure that we have enough time to make such aspirations. It's going to help us in terms of next lifetime. Without thinking about it, if we completely ignore what could happen to us, it might be that we set out on the road and just within a span of a few seconds, it will be the end of our life. So it is dangerous. It is dangerous in terms of this and future lifetimes, particularly because now when we look at the different means of conveyance that we enjoy, we can travel in cars or we can travel in other vehicles that get us to a destination in such a quick way, but also things can go wrong in such a quick way. So it's important to make sure that we make such aspirations, that we think about these points that will be helpful in this lifetime and also future lifetimes.
Tenida gonso lame nyamngawar chebang gembo gomebar nilok nyonshen ramyonam hada songa chebar shos.
Verse 26 says, may the unprotected children and elderly, lost and anxious in desolate places and the like, those intoxicated with sleep and the insane, be watched over by the gods.
Terdan dusu pena yachijadaman dindi yongye yorwas pena ta nganzula nyamnyo yorsra nganzo pigi suzu lomba ani mi centroche du chinta ani mi lomba la ya lebe kaptula pena ngadroji ta lochub den has chobge masum sumzla tu syondige moda nima dün ge yongche tene pigi kaso ta ji tanda dana ta gas la wara kanji gas nanda phes nanda pigi payugi sanzam delaya ani yu yondi tene ani ngun sukan yomaris ra sukan yomada susu lombe ke jamngi michi segan rogon zawni rahe yomarasta ro moda nima dünge sam lesari sukan shingi yomari lamga shingi yomari roba yomari ani o dindri ji khadulaya tam malam dosu susu phamari anchi gegen dosu kadel dene malam dosu kyore yonza ta kyorgorada ro dindri roji insares ro ka ke mebigi semujilaya ani pigi roba khashi ji tu ani sani shogi chuzu shibalaya yagal tigus lamngi ji leros ro desu yamsen ro jors ro.
When we think of verse 26 and the scenario that it sets up, let's look at that again. It says, may the unprotected children and elderly, lost and anxious in desolate places and the like, those intoxicated with sleep and the insane, be watched over by the gods. So those situations, some of them at least, are still relevant to us, even in this day and age. Geshe remembers that, at least thinking about it from Geshe's perspective, once one's homeland is taken away from you, and many people are forced into exile, and also Geshe himself left his homeland, traveled to India. It took him about 7 or 8 days to make his way in a car. At some point, he arrived at the border between Tibet and Nepal. So think about this scenario where he didn't know the language, didn't know the roads, didn't know the place, didn't know anyone. There were no people to help him and so forth. So without protection, without people that can help you out, without even knowing the language, the local language, how hard it is to endure those situations. So at least what Geshe could do at the time was to say the prayers as taught to him by his parents. And indeed, help came soon. Suddenly encountered people that were planning to go to India right the following morning at 4 a.m. and they could join forces together. Kind of they agreed that Geshe will join them on the way to India.
There tingachi umardan mambu manzo anichi yalojogi ta pheniyongi tawa mangchelya kangadi tenyo yoresro kangin tenyo yores tinza ani tangaru tanda mancheba remado dindi chomanyo dindi remondos kanji an dindi khabdulaya ani chi semdi yacha gyani gyatamba phigilaya ani ichilogi thoni malomdi gyagoras tudi ta pengdosro manzo semnala tawaji pengyena mena taine chi malom gyasho sebe sore chebaina tenden ani malomdi nibochon rugosares so su semni gyacha gyatamba konjola ichi logi thoni malomdi gyatubana malomdi rugosares ro.
It's not that Geshe has experienced this situation, which is totally unique, and he was the only one that had to go through such an arduous journey. There are so many monks in South India that have experienced a similar story. So in your mind, when you encounter such a situation, if you have this complete trust, 100% trust, and use it for making such prayers, it will help. This trust that you have, complete sense of trust, does help. Whereas in your mind, you have doubts. You think to yourself, is it really going to help? Maybe it's not going to help. Is it really beneficial? Maybe it's not beneficial. The efficacy of your prayers is being reduced.
Draw gombas sok la meji nyam ngawe. Then draw gombas la ondi epi that chi chong the tronkel sobali and it hajang tagring book and it neamba tosula draw gombas segdos ra tindilta la meji nyam ngawe chebaden gembo game ni lot nyon serab de nyon karbo choji hatak somar cheba shos.
May children, the elderly, those without protector, those minds whose minds are deluded by sleep or totally crazy, were lost in isolated wilderness without paths, be looked after and guided by the gods of the white side.
Tanyiban debutant rubong hola, ni chir mi tendung hoatan, cheradu rabdu chomi tendung hos. Tambu chir mi tendung hola sum punzo tobang hoatan, yandabe lamlan jubong hoa, negab jorwatan, devang ho, tambu punzo tobang hola shi. Tardi ten tanjur tobji, lonjo pusum sobong hoatan, seba meji zije pusum sobong hoatan, zug punzo tan. Member chodu yo ngowa gewa pusum sobo ngowa was tambo ten tanjur tolji lonjo pusum sobo ngowa ni meter konle tarbatan tedan sherab zenden shin sedan punzo joba punzo ni tawdu serab trenkyur chik tamje namgan zojendu lonjo cheba meba shos.
Now, looking at the second point under the section of dedicating for the welfare of beings in the higher realms. The second point is dedicating so that they may accomplish the desired aims. Now, there are two main points in that section. Point A comes under the heading of dedicating for the welfare of humans in general, and point B will then say dedicating for the welfare of the ordained in particular. But first thing first, let's begin with dedicating for the welfare of humans in general. There are three main points: dedicating so that they may obtain excellences, dedicating so that they may enter the correct path, and dedicating so that they have the temporary endowments and pleasures. Now, beginning with dedicating so that they may obtain excellences, there are four main points in this section. Dedicating so that they obtain the support of leisures and endowments and excellent resources, dedicating so that they are without valence and have the excellent magnificence. Point C comes at the heading of dedicating so that they may have the excellent body and that the inferior becomes supreme. And finally, dedicating for the excellent virtues. Now, beginning with the 6 lines that cover verse 27 and the first 2 lines from verse 28, dedicated so that they obtain the support of legends and endowments and excellent resources. This section says, may beings be liberated from the non-leisures and be endowed with faith, wisdom, and mercy, and through food and conduct becoming perfect, may they always recollect their lives. May everyone, just like space treasury, have uninterrupted resources. No.
Shologa Shila and Tsikazori Chudugaras. That D Dingatola Sim Shabana Sim Turas Ra Sim Tuyadi not a penny Jewish Tana Shogiranda Ni Amiro Cousin Sagadawang and Bebig Sagadawadi Dawachik Tata Zigores Dawachigrin La Ame Lojon Tsigima Simba. Tayabu should draw to Satana Shogang Alasra. Yama Logituris. Lojon Sigima the Tigri, Nimaria, Tigri, and the church in it, and the Dawachilia, Sixum Sony. Sholoka G. Simnita, Tanda Tanashogang Alicurious love sonsra. Tanganzu and Chatang Lojon Yang Mijiki, and it's six Chududi, Nimachila Simtograsra.
But before we continue with those verses, Geshe wanted to go back to the 4 verses that we've covered before, beginning with verse 23. May all travelers be happy, all the way also down to verse 26. Those intoxicated with sleep and insane be washed over by the gods. So we have 4 verses, only 16 lines. It's good to commit them to memory. Over the month of Sakadao, the 4th month in the Tibetan calendar, Geshe's mom took upon herself this task of committing to memory the 8 verses for training the mind. So you could say that, the month of Sakadao is just finished, and the number of days in Sakadao almost corresponded perfectly to the lines in the 8 verses for training the mind, right? So 32 lines altogether if you think of 8 verses. So Geshe's mom said that every day she took upon herself this task of every day adding 1 more line to that memorization. And she said that once it is done, she promised Geshe that in the next conversation she's going to recite it by heart. And she did it, right? So it's actually quite a nice plan to do, right? Every day memorize a new line. After 1 month, you have the 8 verses for training the mind be completely committed to your memory. So here we have it even easier, right? So 4 verses, 4 lines each, with 16 lines to commit to memory. Geshe reckons that it's not that hard. It's pretty simple.
Tindicilary, Tandomi short, Tindicilary. Amalo dunchu, ya Jeju Masum singing Amachiki. Tangima in the Perla, ya Migana, Yigi Ping Yores, Tamushavana. Tindi Amajiki, Yigi Lap, Yigi Janche, Puyik Janche, Tama Yigi Shini, Bum Tamba Chungni, Chanzang Logda, Tindi Parchi, the moon is inside, the Parchi Tonson singing. Amadi any Dulaya any Tomachuni Chanza, you catching big lurch in the mixture to which can lot the huge part in the dosra. Ding Arasamna, Amamo Digi and Pig Lab any she any Kanju Tomachuni law to Yana any Negi Inji Labchini Gemma any chick. The Bendu Sonre any chick Jeremy son to the engine you are the law to the so much career some ina nga kala ka upedo sra.
A while ago, Geshe saw a report about a woman that came from the area of Lamatsungkhapa, somewhere in eastern Tibet in the Amdo region. She was in her 70s or 80s, and most Tibetans are illiterate. So at a very, you could say, advanced stage, finally she learned how to read and write, right? So when she was in the 70s or early 80s, and once she was taught how to read, she decided to read some scriptures. So she got the 12 volumes of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra in 100,000 verses, and she read all of them, or she recited all of them. So Geshe saw some photos, some images of her reciting of those texts. So she was sitting with those thick glasses and those 10 volumes resting next to her. And Geshe saw that and said that if she can do it, he can also come to the point where he studies English to a level that will allow him to read the 17 Pandits of Nalanda in English and the writings of Lama Tsongkhapa and so forth. It's a great undertaking still. Yeah, it's a great undertaking still. Geshe is not sure that it managed to do it because English is complicated.
And my mind. That is Tandin Javadina, children of materials, negable, Kanji Mokombi negele, Piggy, any Conle Tarbatan, Tabatan, Sherabtan, Shendungi Samba, Chanju Sam, that 7 inches Shichibita, Shendungi Samba, the Dancians, Setan, Job Posum Sova, Curny, Tau to cerebral chamber Curchix. That the big kitchen boy inside, like big kitchen book, Mulamdira.
Anyway, we read through verse 27 and the first 2 lines from verse 28. Let's look at the commentary. It says, may they always be free from the 8 inopportune states for Dharma practice, which means those 8 states in which we have no freedom to practice the Dharma. May sentient beings be free from those states and endowed with faith, wisdom, and compassion, thinking about the welfare of others. Having attained perfect food and actions, may they always remember their lifetimes. May all who are destitute of possessions receive an unceasing stream of possessions, equaling the concentration of space treasure. So important to make such aspirations.
아니 물론 디나노야 뒤대바치 송고도 왔어라 진짜 다 팀지기 즉 인용 좀도 요 말이 된다 쇼진 참바디 즉 송투바나 배에 빠두면 봐 용거로 왔어라.
The summary of the Dhamma is condensed into Lama Tsongkhapa's 3 principal aspects of the path. And if you were to expand on that, you will find all the practices entailed in the sutras and mantras, and all of them are summarized into the section that we've just read. So just 1.5 verses, so it's a short recitation, and yet its benefit is immense.
There's big massive kitchen book. Teba yabu mena, and Choji Java said that you chenlab jusagita, Shemeva chagdos. Choji Java said that you chenlab juba in a yam, Ranginam Jutri Matuna, and it's our Nimu Pasadi, Mari Pasadi, Pontu Maros. Ra, da Mari Nimbu 10 to Teba year, Mari Nimbu 10 to in a yam. Sherabki tuba inaya, Shendung Sambad Mena, and the Tamji came to Combo Druagi, Piggy Gujadi, Yontugumadas. That did Samalo, Kanji did Samalo Yakuch, and it Tembuji Yana, and it Seraptau, any Chavakari Chejavadi, and it Chayach Yungarasra. Nanzu Sing Hamigi Chavakarchi Yabadi, Martin, Chimakarchi Yabadia, Samla Martin di. 아니 첸데 찍보려야 아니 몽대지 셴대지 마도 상록한 땅모토와디 세르 마틴비기 아니 템마투비 왕기 용거라서라 딘즈 따도 세르 텐세디 백히션 위서레스
최종 감들라 챔버스티 기왕아말라 전데는 줌바레스 태아치크베 야마나 치던제나 세랍 챔버
지단 세르 템바지
치든 오케이. Without faith, we'll have no basis for receiving blessings of the Buddhas of the 10 directions. Right? So that will not come about if we have no faith. Without wisdom, without intelligence, we will not be able to abandon the afflictions which are based on ignorance. But even if we have faith in the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, even if we have wisdom that can be put to use to abandon the afflictions, still without an altruistic intention, the wish to be of benefit to others, will not have the right ingredient, the necessary ingredient for enlightenment. So if we have all of those aspects that I mentioned here, we will also be mindful of our lifetimes. Looking at this verse, it says, may beings be liberated from the non-leisures and be endowed with faith, wisdom, and mercy, or compassion, through food and conduct becoming perfect. May they always recollect their lives. So we also, when we think of our life, or when we think of ourselves, we don't recollect our past lives, and we also hardly think of future lives. What we're mainly concerned with is this lifetime only. So here Shantideva is making prayers that may we recollect our lives rather than recollecting specific accounts from past lifetimes. Here Geshe reckons that it is a general notion of being mindful of many lifetimes, having been through many rebirths before, but also future rebirths that are still awaiting for us, rather than being completely consumed with this life and thinking, what can I get out of this lifetime only? In that sense, being concerned only with the affairs of this life, may we be able to be mindful, to recollect that we go through many lifetimes. It ends, looking at the commentary, it ends with saying, may all who are destitute of possessions receive an unceasing stream of possessions, equaling the concentration of space treasury.
남긴 죄도 똥바인기리 상무드스라 남긴 죄스는 규자라 마무시 울루셔들라고라 남칸에 남같지도 똥바라 와서라 남긴 죄도 똥바인기리다스.
Anyway, it's a really strange term, space treasury. After all, space is empty. So Geshe reckons that also space treasury is empty because space is empty. You know, so when we think of treasury, having riches that are piled up together, still space treasury is probably empty.
다이나 땡이즈 비기게 원예바이나 아니 간섬 드베치 고 융구여라스 다 디승거라스라.
Anyway, the point here is that if you attain mastery over concentration, you're going to be able to accomplish whatever you seek.
단이버 서 매진 지제 푸숨 초봉호원이스 저버 매진 세메바 라완톤 저버쇼 심진 지지 총가 대다 지지 쳔버쇼스.
Now the next 4 lines come under the heading of dedicating so that they are without violence and have the excellent magnificence. Let's look at these 4 lines, beginning with the last 2 lines in verse 28. It says, without conflict and without harm, may they enjoy themselves in freedom. May the sentient beings with little splendor become greatly magnificent.
Terda diyan geçimboda chigli chig geçawara yani zöba mejen seme barsadi sanji gi shongita sanji gi labji gita nimbu chig ra nimbu chig tambang anzuta ani sanji wi chula ya shuondi be ani kamdu dombani chene ani tsewa meba shishabe toni songu yorasra ta dindri chig yobaina dindri chig la yan juktu baina ani sikje pusum soba sayadi ta yongyong ba insares ra.
So again, here Shantideva mentions those points that are really important. It seems that the importance is becoming more and more significant. So first off, when we look at the verse, without conflict and without harm, constituting the very basis of the Buddha Dharma. Having gone for refuge, we take up the practice of non-harmfulness without conflict, without harm. If we do practice completely, if we practice well, without conflict and without harming others, undoubtedly we will attain magnificence, perfect magnificence.
Revenan penzu zoba meji, jengi tsewa meba rawantun jobar shos, jengi nibi nesu kyubi simji ziji chungu kanyimba teda ziji chenbo shos.
The commentary says, may they live together harmoniously without quarrels, and may they live independently without experiencing harm. May those of little splendor, who are the object of ridicule, achieve great splendor.
Tirda kanji ngansugi kyan samalo, mantriba samalo, penzu zoba zoni, penzu chigi chigla ya, ane chig kyan joridan, ane katangri chiya, mambeb chiya, o dinti toni, teni tsewe lamdi yungu yoras, tarwa kanji ane megawi ki pigi ta drasanandra, ane mancham sagi tuzu samalo penzu zoba la teni ta chongsha gyochik, ta gyashi gyatan waros, te mebi toni, ane tsewa mebi toni, lu nga yiksum, ane tsewa mebi tola ya, ane drongi jimbay na, suk hangi, ane nyemun chisayadi, yungu yomares, ra. Tinti ki tsewa mebi tola ya, drongi jimbay na, tsami ki kukur che deyachik, imun sho deyagi, meji chagdos, ra.
Often when we look at the way that we interact with others, all faults. Everything that does not work out, we blame others for those things. We criticize others. We criticize each other. We put other people down. And all those attitudes that we get involved with criticizing others, putting others down, are harmful attitudes. We might act in this way with our enemies, with people that we dislike, people that we disagree with or we don't get along with, which means that if we do all those things, we're acting in a way that is harmful. But if we abstain from all of them and with our body, speech, and mind, we act in ways which are non-harmful, non-violent, others will, at some point, find our company to be inspiring. They will seek our company.
파 kushya majin tsu kushya chiga marasra. Ani 파 yaw majin tsu yaw chiya kabu perasra. Tijidi kanji sosu ngoni kari imba na ya yabu yongo na sosu ngoni yabu chigo ya. Dugja yongo do na sosu ngoni norde yawachi. Ti deda jachi yadamba insares ra.
If you're acting in a way that is disrespectful towards others, they will also treat you in kind, they will become disrespectful towards you. If you behave poorly with respect to others, it is likely that they will also behave poorly with respect to you. They will treat you in kind. So then when we are looking for a good outcome, then we should make sure that from our own perspective, from our own side, we behave in a positive way. And if something results in a poor situation, then we also need to look at ourselves and to be able to recognize the mistakes that led to that experience.
That's somebody soup punzo member chod one is. Katu chen kan sungempa Susan Punsum Chokirchix. Tandin Yorchik, Jigdem Pamichin, but Tadakeva Ningirchik. Marav Nam Todujing, I get that and jumper shows.
Then the next point is dedicating so that they may have the excellent body and that the inferior becomes supreme, or the lower becomes greater. So then we have 6 lines in this section, beginning with the last 2 lines in verse 29, which are not without difficulties. So let's look at that. So it says, may the poor form of ascetics become fine and perfect forms. However many women there are in the world, may they all become men. May the lowly attain high status, and may the proud be subdued. I don't know where we go from here. Yeah. Sorry. La mesa de yeah. Even if you're if you're not saying anything, you're probably thinking of something.
Kanji any Katupchenke, Susula Kangan Chepa, Pig Tony Shu, Chigoyat, and Chik Sungamba to Samalo, then Dugio Maras, Susan Pusum Sobachik, Dugora Darwa. And that Susan Pusum Sobachi Yongona, the Guyan Kandajil then Yongo said. Kandajin Yongo said, D. Nanzula Tevagodas, Dara. Things that Sanji Chujon Alaya, Su Sambodi, so pig. Sabi Yamni Cheval Teni, Chongri Songodas. The Peshe Jachigan Gatamba. Soba Meba in a row. Conto Sawishu Jimbainaya, Chikarmu Karu Servainaya, and me Ninja Tongomodazra. That's Chik Suk Sambos Laundi, me Ninja Tona, Sambore, Ninja Mountain Sambo Marasra.
Anyway, beginning with the last 2 lines in verse 29. So it says, may the poor forms of ascetics become fine and perfect forms. Now, the poor form of ascetics, which means may those who encounter difficulties, those that go through difficult situations, or those that have a poor form, may those who do not wish to have those problems, to encounter those problems, so may those who do not wish for a poor form, may they get what they want. May they become fine and perfect forms. So we need to ask ourselves also, what are the causes and conditions contributing to having a poor form? What are the causes and conditions that contribute to finding a beautiful or attractive form? Mainly here, when we think of finding a good form, from a Dharma perspective, it is related to the practice of patience. So if we become greatly impatient, if we become angry and so forth, others will not find the company appealing. So it might be that physically you might have some beautiful features, but still, if you are prone to anger and so forth, other people will not find your company to be nice. So the main thing Geshe reckons that is highlighted in this section is that if you wish, if those people that wish to have good forms, not ugly forms or poor forms and so forth, what they should be doing mainly is to take up the practice of patience.
츠카규리아리스.
Mm.
계란 직된 깨바 징예바 대답 분명히 규칙스 람도기나 딜랍쇼그레스.
Now, moving on to a different territory. So it says, however many women there are in the world, may they all become men. It's honest, the Dalai Lama said that actually we can turn it around. You can also read it, however many men there are in the world, may they all become women.
지단기 디 참말로 라고 다 세우 세냐로 베나 만주지 분명히 분명히 넘바 임발이야 지 이담니 체니 다 참아 여러왔다 개바 분명히가 여러왔다 또 참말로 비기 기빈 넘바 교셔서 다 라고 메바 세우 세냐로 원 세우 세냐로 이나 단 디 카도라야 가르친라고 그래 가발 공 라바레세 디 공식 거바디 가리임바디 아니 니투바이나 샘나라야 마데바 치레그 마리스 라.
So we can approach these lines in a variety of ways. First of all, when we look at the Buddha Dhamma, levels of the Buddha Dhamma, even if we begin with the highest level, the practice of Tantra, we can see that in all of those different levels, we have representation of women. Like, for example, when you look at meditational deities, yidams, then you have male form and female form, right? So they're not absent. So that's one way, or one thing to think about. Another thing is to think of what Shantideva was intending to say when he spoke of this, when he wrote these lines. What was the basis of Shantideva's intention? How do we contextualize it?
라베나 다 텐상안조 비기다 미추조 코란 비기 아니 로종 요교 차시 로종 숙체를 좋은디기 아니 힘이기 비기기 직다와님바디 다 아니 롬보 망부쇼를 라고거스 라투거스 마당 힘마 드럽 베나 전주 디송비기 갑기 드럽 나로라야 안직 샤쇼기 아니 롬바츠 나로라야 범에도서 빼 아니 통종 지거라스 범에 임바이나야 아니 지가 범에 인삼는 비길이야 아니 지 아니 마살라 대지 빼 가서 왔다 예주다 가리 용바이나야 빼디 아니 고르는 대대와 딘지기 드럽지 종요라스 이제 딘지리야 다 강가 쇼지연자 아니 드소페 아니 개번유도 교셔세 물론 개야 잠레마도 샹디데와 코나 마치 존나 팸니 디까동 치고 존나 자원이 제 투야지 말아왔더라.
So then when we contextualize what was Shantideva's intention when he wrote this verse, what was the basis for writing such words, then we can first of all look at the world around us and see that as we're becoming more and more educated, and particularly when you find places in which the level of education is getting higher and higher, and also access to education is provided to everyone, then such views which could be views that disparage women are getting fewer and fewer, and we root out such old views. Now, before, when we think of a time of old, like for example in the East, the situation of women was such that they were looked down upon. They had to accept the lower position, and they were either ridiculed or were the object of scorn and so forth. So at the time of Shantideva, since that was the situation of women at that particular in that particular environment and social or cultural context, Shantideva was making such prayers that may women not born into that state, may they become men. Of course, when we think about making such a prayers, it's not that Shantideva had the ability to travel to all those different places and change the situation of women. That was not possible. So at least he made that prayer that was, you would say, a prayer that was more suitable in a social and historical context.
살짝 가실래야 단다 이마이나야 비기 사상 교가는 게미니기 냠도 대고라다 냠대온디기 아니 게미디기 교가들라 칼라 스위치 아니 교가디 칼라 세차자 벌도 게미디 비기 술데야 란 대기도 왔어 띵앙 무슨 통요가 적부딘디지困难 중에 투시기도스라 아니 교가디 칼라 찬장 세자딘 게미디 탈레드 마두 자마즈는 뭐라는 비기래야 칼라신 사기도스 딘디기 베나 아니 가서다 콘존 드라단지어라스
Not only that was the case at time of old, you can see that still the situation persists in some places in the world. Like, for example, Geshe has lived in India for a few decades, and looking at the relationships that people have between each other, like, for example, in forming a household or relationship, then in some places, the woman does the cooking. Then she offers food to the husband, and she stays standing all along while her husband is having his meal. Once he finishes having his meal, then she takes away the plate, and only then she can serve herself, sit down and have a meal. So Geshe said that in some places, such attitude or such behavior is still present.
ganzu pheleya chitang ganzu pheleya namasangi chedi ngonne thanigita shukchembu shuch tarioros ani chik thosum gonsum gtoni da ting sabu shuch tsuyoros inaya bi mi chizog nalo ya chik mi chizog rang nalo ya ani shenjachik yaji yadam yores ra ganzu chunchung kholeya ni amatanji labde ni amatanda logechures 아마 로첩기 주고 뉴슈컵이야 아니 차베 딘딜이야 라바코라 챙고 말스 가서 페메레스 라브시 딘디기 따와 캔서 지여다스로 이제 딘자 다시 니다야 지조야 기로 겨울음신 잠블링기 피기 아니 템바 겨치 안두 손디다 아니 롱압주 두주 둔줄 레바이나야 아니 베익 장치 차베 장치 아니 딘치야 용도스로 인자 갑 투두 아니 품메지기 이게래 깨바지 깨샤나다 야가 유들도 뜨니 아니 톱당 치야요 반자 안 두수 아니 깨바니든 교와쇼스 물론 야고라스 드리마도 쩌당 품메디 아니 레벤시 가자 아니 샨데바기페 아니 독잔 톤 송샤규지 자원인 말어스라
지선데 갑디라 그나 아말로 쪽에 주고 니슈카 소나인데 락팔라 차펠라 락파찬 요마레세 디야
창마다 거르수 곰시로지
자이네디 소마다 아니 텐서 다나 레베야
좀만 간줄로 좀만 가시 가지 니저서 콘서 대치도 콘서 잡을 로고
So then even in Tibet, Geshe says, where the Buddha Dharma took root in such a strong and powerful way, and people were involved to such a great degree with study, reflection, and meditation, still there was gender bias or discrimination happening in Tibet, present in Tibet for a long time. But it's changing, as Geshe said, for example, his mother reads the text, other people from the laity, including women, are taught how to read and write and so forth. And this is something that he's going through transformation under the guidance of His Holiness the Dalai Lama over a few decades, 50, 60 years already. So when Geshe's mom was young, and as Geshe said, now she's 80, when she was in her when she was 18, 90 or 20, it was not common for women, let alone to read a text. It was not even common for women to pick up a text. This is not to say that it was then, Geshe said that he remembers that before, at least where he comes from, there were more monks than nuns. It was more rare to see a nun, but it's not that they were banned from touching text or reading text and so forth. Of course, they did read a text, they did do recitations, prayers, and so forth. But in general, it was kind of more uncommon for just a woman to pick up a text. But we live in a changing time. So anyway, Geshe reckons that when you think about such historical, cultural traditional context at the time of Shantideva, you could say that it made more sense for me for praying that women would not have to go through those situations where they're being marginalized.
대다 대다 예반 연결지 말업 남는 토도지 나겔 다선 줘버쇼스 지난신기다 지든 예바 진예바 대다 분명히 연결지 말업 남는 토도지 나겔 다선 줘버쇼스 두스 간지 규르니 다가람 뺀다 유두 카실래야다 유롱 카실래야 아니 게임에서 완전 뭐 쇼자는 게와서 쇼 냥거서 두조 게와두조 분명히 교하셔서 물론 야야레스라
Anyway, just a second, it says, so however many women there are in the world, may they all become men. May the lowly attain high status, and may the proud be subdued. So, as we said, you can change the gender outlook of this verse and says, may, however many men there are in the world, may they all become women. May the lowly attain high status, may the proud be subdued. It is likely that there are some places in the world where women are considered to be better than men or higher than men. So in those situations, you can think, may all men become women.
차량을 흘동이 까듯이 숭임바테다 수상부 포숨 쳐보쇼스 직대나 식결을 넣으셨는 미만용샤는 직대나 깨바 진이 바테다 페메뉴도 규칙 직냠비 말을 나오네 직토 토지 토니 나게 다진 점버쇼스.
So looking at the commentary to this section, it says, may all those who with wretched bodies, such as ascetics, whose bodies are tormented by heat and cold, have beautiful, completely perfect and whole body. Now here, whole bodies. Now here, since we have in this set of teachings, we have more women attending than men, then we can change the following section like that. May all men in the world become women. May all those of low lineage achieve a higher status and abandon pride despite their attainment.
디레스다 디 베나 마랍 남 토도 증아제 단 조버 쇼세디 아니 마랍 세디 제베 나라야 제단디 슈진 고츠마 손스 이네야 간지 아니 토세디 릭 토발야 인제 갑 테데 디 툴야 지 릭 예와 슈지 대신 지소나라야 아니 간사 릭지 아니 릭 멤버야 지치니 베 아니 뉴브주 체데저스 안 두수 아니 릭 토알야 지와지 용쇼세 물론 디갸고서스라 디갸고서스.
It says at the end of the commentary, may all those of low lineage achieve a high status and abandon pride despite their attainment. Now, the way that it is expressed in Tibetan is a little bit awkward. Geshe is not sure that he understands deeply what Geshe Dhammarinchen means when you say, may all of those of low lineage. In the Tibetan, it says, may all who are ill-mannered, belonging to degenerated lineage, have a high status and abandon pride despite their attainment. Anyway, in places where you have a social system such that those of high class look down on those of low class, when you have a caste system, when you have a class system, may you have systems where people are being criticized or disparaged or taken advantage of because of their social status. It says, may all those of low lineage or low status achieve a high status and abandon pride despite this attainment.
디레지자 릭릭 예와 체데디 산지점된 디기 공바당 자원이는 통고요 말레스 산지점된 디기 릭릭 예와메 푸미 예와메 릭무즈 르무즈 드바조레스 베 아니 타전 송요라스 라 이나야 아니 코 산지 쳔마들 코니 Any Rigugi Yavataya deep and the Jagadojina, Chitam Pela Digi, any Shandos, Jagala, Shuji Shukchambo, any Rigugi Yavataya, the Euros. Dinza, and Jawarmuchi Pigi, Rigu Yawashuji Yodesagi, Lombodozala Pepcheni, Kachu Kabdulaya, Lada Chilaya, Lada Chilaya, any Rigma Tozolaya, any Shella Sojuji, Sonchu Pigi, Chito Ranlaya, and Koranzolaya, Kachu, and Jawarmuchi, Dishedos, a Shella Dishin. Mother Kunzu Lombalaya, pe Rig members like the Kunzani pe, and Chukoran Matonchi, and Dinichigores, Rig members like.
Tadi pepechi zola tanda rig dene yawa yorwa. Chazandi number shoot tamaya rigi yawa di presha kandachi gyagire.
Chazan di Tumbaji Mares, di Kaso Taji Komishik Sorich. Ah, Duxan Shin Junging Sorich Redata.
Jonya.
Rig Zitanjor, Delia and Gunzichi among the Nijilao.
So then there are places where there is a caste system or a class system that is deeply rooted in society. It was the case like that in India, and the Buddha, in given teachings, transcended all that classification of the caste system, not making the Dhamma available to only those of high class or high caste, but making it available to others, regardless of the gender or the caste system. In the Tibetan tradition or Tibetan culture, the system of class was not as developed, or the system of caste was not as developed in the Indian system. And in general, you could say that when the Buddha Dhamma spread in Tibet, the message still that came across on the Buddha Dhamma is an attitude that was not a biased attitude towards, or at least the Buddha Dhamma was not discriminating against women or people of low social caste system. So when His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for example, visited Ladakh, where the class system still is very strong in the Ladakh area, His Holiness made it a point to invite people to share food with him. And as he was sharing food with others, they were eating food from the same utensils. So such things as, for example, sharing food with those of a lower class, eating from the same utensils or same pots, or transferring food, giving food to each other, is something that is completely banned socially if you do regard this caste system. So His Holiness, thinking that we need to rid ourselves of this caste system, this old system, demonstrated it with his behavior. Shagya.
Shakirik. Nambagrik. Rik Dugatsegores. Gagata. Di Kanji Chapsik Chirendo. Ah. Di Nadu Chuluk Penzugi. Any Mima Young Tony. Any Chapsik Kedanji. Nisam Diresh Sangus. And on the Perlaya. Gara sengi di rik duga tsegores. Gara kundra shangi la soba. Gencha dongi la soba. Di rik duga tsegores. Tadi pe kenza shoj. Gencha dang kundra tuzu la ya peba tuzu nyo rogores. Di songi di rik duga tsegores ra. Ani shemba rik duga tsegore. Shala gabu pe chigores. Di ani tsingbu jangi di ya rik duga tsegum mudas. Teli chu mudas. Gyunzen mudas. Gyunzen yomaris ra.
So, for example, in India, Buddhists are considered to be of a lower caste. They're called the Shakya caste. In Tibetan society, there's also a caste system. So, for example, those who are goldsmiths or silversmiths, those who make statues and so forth, are regarded as lower caste. And Geshe feels that this is really awkward. This is really weird because people, of course, like jewelry. They like statues, images, and so forth, but they disparage does that make them? They consider them to be a lower caste. Something also is with butchers, for example, were regarded as a lower caste, and Tibetan people really like meat, right? So you like meat, but you don't like the one providing you the meat. You like jewelry and you like statues and so forth, but you don't like the person who is making them. A tailor, for example, is not considered to be a lower caste in Tibetan society. So it's pretty weird because it seems like a really random division of society. And Geshe feels, at least this is his personal idea about it, that it is completely useless.
데레다 이내 디톨라 백이 아니 무스 주존나로야 페브니 아니 비기 다지 용자 비기 다지 주존나로야 링마와 즈딩인 투조 냠도 비기려야 아니 최다 상승기 롱제니 베길 퉁인데다 아니 겨울무치 다조 텐도스 다 디니 진다 아니 슉총 쇼치로 아니 베베나로 따주디 베 마시바티니
Anyway, that's the background in Tibetan society, and still under the guidance of His Holiness the Dalai Lama in terms of the way that the Dharma is shared with others, the way that enjoyments, material needs and goods are shared with others, those old ways are becoming smaller and smaller, or weaker and weaker, I'd say. Anyway, thank you very much. We'll leave it here for now. Chanchus, no, sorry. Gewadi Nyududa Lama Sange Drugyune Doa Chikya Malupa De Salago Parasho Chanchu Semcho Rinpoche Make Pananke Gyuchi Geva Nyamba Mepaya Kone Gondu Pewa Sho Kanri Rawe Kowe Shinkambi Pendan Dewa Malu Jungwene Chenre Siwan Tenzing Yatsoi Shape Site Bardu Tengyuchi Tu Tsu Chan Shin Jang Gung Gya We Te Hen Zin Kyong Pe We Kun Zo Do Po Se Cho Sun Ko We Le Mun Tu Tu Pa Da So Du Je Gon Du Sha Ten Sho